Good morning. My name is Joe Bandel, and I am the last Rosicrucian. Today we're going to talk about the Temple of One. Now, in the beginning, when the two groups of alien souls, brothers, space brothers and sisters, incarnated into physical bodies, they had a strong disadvantage because they did not have a soul connection to Gaia, to Earth, and physical manifesting was not very easy to them. So they allied themselves with the original Gaia inhabitants. And the dynamics of that was interesting because they, on the one hand, the atheists, they had a strong group soul that they came in with. And the other ones, the traditionalists, they had a strong sense of individual souls, of the immortality of the soul and the spirit world. The spirit is very powerful for them. And the original Gaia inhabitants were just in the beginning stages of developing these things. They didn't have it. So they were very susceptible to outside influence. So the native Gaia inhabitants were, I'm going to use the word, the True Gnostics. And throughout history, every place you've seen the hidden teachings of Gnosticism and tantric sexuality, and how the development of the soul involves that it develops through love relationships between males and females, and in the equality of the sexes. That goes back to the original inhabitants of Gaia. Things that go back to the atheist point of view are the viewing of logic and reason, science, sacrificing for community, for greater purposes, for the largeness. The downside is that a machine has no soul and it has no heart. And these humans didn't have a soul and didn't have a heart in the sense that the original Gaia inhabitants had. And so they didn't, to them, the spiritual the side of life did not exist. It had no meaning. Now, the others, the traditionalists, they knew about they taught the immortality of the soul and how important the heart and the soul was in life. But they were so impassioned by that they said, hey, physical life, sexuality, none of that's any good. Deny the physical, focus on the spiritual, focus on the life of the soul, because that's what we did. And what they didn't say is that ultimately the soul and the physical body need each other, that they create a resonant circuit. And what they didn't say was that the soul by itself will fade back into nothingness if it does not connect back with a physical body. And in both of these cases, there of these two groups, there were developed souls that were coming into physical bodies to strengthen their own souls, if you will. But they were also working with and in cooperation with the original Gaia inhabitants, because the original Gaia inhabitants had the power to draw the fire down from heaven and to physically manifest things. It's important to kind of get an idea of this. And they formed like a mystery school, I guess you could say, the religions, the mystery schools. Now, the first mystery schools taught it was called the Temple of One, because everything was in unity, everything was united, and there was a place for each group of humans. We first see this in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, where it talks about the three gates that exist on the soul as it transitions from physical life through death and back to some form of life again. Centuries later, we see this reflected once again in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. The three gates, one for each of these groups. The highest gate, the gate where the individual soul, the individual awareness can achieve unity and immortality for itself, was reserved for the original Gaia inhabitants. The second, where the soul upon death was greeted by a Messiah figure or teacher, was relegated. That was for the atheists, the collective, because they belonged to a collective soul, and that's where they found their home and would come back from there. The third, the traditionalists found themselves at a doorway or a portal or a gateway where they encountered their, what we would call, reincarnating ego, their higher self, that would direct them to their next body, and they would overview the past life, things like that. But in the beginning, these were recognized, and they were all held together. And we find this, well, I first ran across the Temple of One when they talked about Atlantis, and we don't have any record in the physical world of Atlantis existing. The best we can do is the Minoan civilization of Crete, and for all practical purposes, we can say that Crete and the Minoan civilization represented Atlantis. It was destroyed by earthquake and flood, and it lived for the highest expression of physical life that included the arts, it included the sciences, it included the spirit, and it included the equality of men and women. So in my mind, there's nothing wrong with saying that Crete could have been the true island of Atlantis, of legend. And it had the Temple of One, where these three groups were able to meet together and live in harmony, each offering their strengths to the others. But with the destruction of Crete, we see some of that happening and going into Egypt, where I said, like I said, the Egyptian Book of the Dead had some reflections of that. We see monotheism, Zoroastrianism, and these religious concepts. But basically, this is when everything started to fall apart. And these two groups that were working in harmony with the original Gaia inhabitants began to work against each other and work against the original Gaia inhabitants. We see in our modern world, we see how firmly logic and reason and the sciences deny any aspect of the spirit, any aspect of religion. And on the other hand, we see how religion and the church is totally denied the importance of the here and now, the importance of the physical life, the importance of human sexuality, love relationships, and it has focused exclusively or almost exclusively upon the afterlife. And by doing these things, both of these groups have tried to disenfranchise the original Gaia inhabitants by feeding them narratives that encourage dependence upon their own group for the original Gaia inhabitants to turn over their power to external authorities and to go away from a balance of male and female. That's all I have time for today, but this is touching upon a key ingredient. Check out my websites, subscribe to this channel, and donate if you can. Share this. Thank you.